joined?
Hi, yes, I am. I'm going to switch over to video as soon as my iPad's finished charging, so I'll just have audio for now.
That's fine. I recognize the voice. That's good enough for me.
So, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that we're now live on YouTube, so please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you to our board secretary, Julie, for confirming that we have quorum. So I will call meeting 21 of the Board of Health to order. Welcome, everybody. This is, of course, and indeed a special meeting. And under the bylaws, as a special meeting, or under the procedural bylaw, we can only consider the business on this agenda item. So this isn't it is, for the first time in 8 months, it is not a meeting to discuss COVID, though I know many of us are working frantically on the side on that. Rather, we are meeting critically for our long-planned anti-Black racism training session. And so welcome everybody to this meeting. Let me begin off the top by noting that while we are meeting in different locations and meeting remotely today, we would acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for this meeting? I don't imagine there are, but I formally must ask. If you have an interest, if you could raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. So we do have, of course, the one item on the agenda, which is our training session on anti-Black racism, understanding equity with an from Afrocentric values and principles, and embedding equity and anti-Black racism in governance and leadership. And can I just say, you'll see them on our screen. I'd like to welcome and introduce our three presenters who are going to facilitate this today. Of course, we have Liben Gabriel-Michael, the Executive Director of Taibu Community Health Center, who has spoken to us in the past. Liben, thank you so much for being here. Dr. Keisha McPherson, founder of the Creative Consulting Group, and Kimberly Tull, Director of Community Development and Engagement at the U of T in Scarborough. So thank you so much to all three of you, and our apologies for this being postponed from last spring. With that, so we will now move, as this is a training session, into closed session on this item to permit our board to undertake training for our directors, which is permitted under the City of Toronto Act. Before we move into closed session, I just want to move a motion to permit our presenters who are here to participate. And Councillor Paul Ainslie, who may be joining, he's requested to participate in this training for his own learning and benefit. So I have a motion, if Julie, our recording secretary, could put on the screen to permit the following individuals to be in attendance for this closed session. That is Liben Gabriel-Michael, Dr. Keisha McPherson, and Kimberly Tull, as well as Councillor Paul Ainslie, should he join, as he requested. So in order for us to go into closed session with our presenters, I've moved that motion. If members of the board could raise your hands if you're in support of this motion. Seeing them, thank you very much. Any opposed? Okay, seeing none. So Chair, I would then ask the board secretary to temporarily close the meeting to the public, to only provide access to directors, staff, and the invited participants for this closed session. And for members of the public, if you tuned in, as we are going in private for a closed training session, the YouTube live stream will be suspended until this is over. And so I'll turn it over then to our board secretary just to advise when we have been closed, if that's all right.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll just show on the screen the motion to go into closed session, if I could. And I just have here that the Board of Health resets its public session to meet in closed session to consider this item as it relates to the education or training of the directors.
Okay, thank you for that. And so I would just ask now that that's been moved, if by a show of hands, if members are in support of going into closed session for the training, all those in favor, opposed, if any, that carries. I see Gord Perks. Now that we're in closed session, I'm just going to call you by your first names. Gord, I see you. Welcome. Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Liben, Keisha, and Kimberly. Again, thank you so much. And our